Italy, you work in finance only because of the salary. That's what
we should have talked about that.
That's the only motivation.
So, let's take some questions. I like questions. What do you guys got? Hey everybody, we're back with another episode. It's Giorgio and Dave here from the Wealth Innovation Lab. We get a lot of questions about getting jobs in the finance industry, in fintech, and I'll just go through a few of them from the Quora and Twitter feed, and we'll see what people ask about careers in finance generally. Do your high school grades matter when applying for a job in finance in Germany, Switzerland, and Luxembourg? That was an anonymous question. High school grades. So first of all, high school for those of us from different countries, like I'm originally from the US, is totally different than here. In Switzerland, as you know, there's kind of this Matura system where you go through and you get selected based on your grades, which kind of high school you qualify for, whether you're university applicable or not. And I think in Italy you had the same, right? The same experience.
In Italy is slightly different. You can apply to any university, and then in some universities you have tests and you can be admitted or not. And your grade matters a little bit, but basically you can do the worst high school and then get into the best
university after. So it's pretty good.
It really doesn't matter. I think for Italy it doesn't matter. I don't know. But I think I wasn't even asked about my high school in an interview here in Switzerland.
So basically, once you've gone, if you go to university, your high school is forgotten, right? Because what you did in university is actually what you're going to talk about in a job interview. So your extracurricular activity. So like I said in the last episode, when I was at university, I opted out of classes to run the school credit union for a semester and earned credits and money to do that because I needed the money to pay my tuition. And so that got me into the banking industry. So I actually working on campus, and that is what the job interview people found interesting, because you actually then get hard skills. You can manage a small team already. Yeah. And it's these hard skills, I think, that are a lot more important than grades. Grades are basically what get you into a higher level of education in something, whether that's a technical school to learn how to code, or it's university level to learn a business degree. Any way you look at it, people are not only going to evaluate your grades when they're looking at you as a potential fit for their team, but they're going to look at your personality.
Yeah, but maybe to finish the question, they might matter if you apply after your high school. If there's an opening for like an internship or an apprenticeship, maybe they will look at your grades, because this is an easy way to assess the level of the candidate.
And there again, hard skills. So Phil, who will likely hear and watch this episode, was working here as an intern. Phil was working as an intern, and the only reason that I hired Phil as an intern was because I never looked at his grades once. That's what HR does. They make sure you're not hiring a criminal, right? So what I looked at was, how's this person? And Phil had just launched and exited a company, and he had launched several companies before. And it's these entrepreneurial hard skills, how to sell, how to find customers, how to get their phone numbers, how to convert a digital business. This is the stuff that if you're sharp, whether you were trying to work in fintech or in a big bank, more in the front end of what they're doing, or in the IT services of one, this is the kind of stuff you should talk about. It was the same with us, what I remember. I don't ever remember asking about your grades. I asked, what in the world is an Italian guy doing in Hong Kong? Right?
Yeah. No, you didn't ask me about my grades. Not even at the proper HR interview. I mean, I was asked to submit the records of my grades, but none of the hiring manager asked for my track record.
That piece is a checkbox.
Even if it was really good, I have to say.
Yeah, here comes the Italian bravado, huh? But I think, when Georgie and I first talked, it was all about the projects he was doing on the side. He was setting up his Instagram business, he was setting up his consulting business, and it was amazing to hear about, for me, how 25, 26, 28-year-old people run the economy from a startup perspective, from an entrepreneurial perspective, and that's what I can learn a lot from. So it really depends on who's your hiring manager. If you want to go in the back office into operations, processing FX trades, probably a higher likelihood they're going to look at your grades and your background. In more of an innovative area where I'm looking for new hard skills that people can't put on a CV yet, then more likely to look at what have you actually done. There was another one, which I love this question, by the way. Georgie, take this first. Is it weird to bring a notebook or an iPad for notes to a meeting with a potential boss? What will they think of it?
Well, it's not weird if you're comfortable taking notes and that's what you do in your in your daily. It's your thing. Just do it. Be yourself. And then if your manager thinks it's weird, maybe it's not a good fit. Maybe it's a good sign that it's not gonna work. So just be yourself and do what you want. That's my advice.
I remember going on 3 or 4 years ago, the first couple of stages, and I had gotten an iPad, and now I've moved on to iPhones, but back in the day it was iPads, and I remember we were at this conference, and it was a lot of banking people crowded into a room talking about what we were going to do to change the industry, and I remember whipping out the iPad and the connector, and going up to the front of the room spontaneously and presenting a couple of things, and I just plugged in the iPad and was whipping through prototypes and showing people, not just talking at them with slides, but actually showing them product. You should have seen people's faces. First of all, gratitude, interest, awake eyes, which usually in the afternoon you have sleepy people. So I think if you are authentic about what you're doing and you believe in it, you can use whatever medium you want to communicate.
Yeah, I mean, unless you scribble and you draw a dog or something. If you take notes, meaningful notes about this conversation you're having and to-do list action points, I think it will be highly appreciated.
Again, it really depends what kind of job you're trying to get. So there is everything in the world is represented in a bank, from the stiffest, most difficult areas to work, which are, probably the back office functions of really processing stuff through, all the way through to front end services where you speak with clients or prospects about how they're running their businesses and you're off in the future zone. And that whole array of people is within the banking structure and fintech structure too. Yeah. And you got to know who you're talking to. So know your audience and what's comfortable. There was another one here about this. Oh, I love this one. How valuable is an internship under a financial advisor at Morgan Stanley? So we named the bank. So I'm not going to say anything bad about Morgan Stanley. I've never worked there, just to be clear. What do you think? Internship for a financial advisor anywhere?
It depends on your long-term goals. If your long-term is to work for a bank, long time, Morgan Stanley is certainly one of the best brand out there. So if you want to work for a bank, it's definitely a good thing. On a greater scale in life, it's not, I wouldn't be so excited about it. I would be more excited about 6 months traveling around the world but yeah, if you want to have a career in finance, it's definitely a great thing.
Can I tell you a personal story? So back in 2004, I was still living here in Switzerland, and I had to get a new job. My circumstances changed. And it took me about 8 months to get a new job. I was mostly climbing and skiing and traveling around like Georgie was describing. I was still young, and a bank called me, and it was a former colleague of mine, and he offered me to come in and have a talk. That's what got me into banking. Previous to that, I had consulted at banks. I had audited banks as a financial guy and in an audit firm, but working at a bank is much different. And from that, as banking has changed over the years, I kind of grew along and matured with it. I think you can learn a ton of hard skills while you're at a bank. And, whether it's for a financial advisor on the front end, I don't think the brand really matters as long as it's credible. But I think it's more the people around you and the team. So what exact desk are you going to work in and what's it doing? Is it domestic, onshore, retail, which means you're going to be processing credit card transactions and trying to convince people to buy financial products? Is that kind of financial advisory, broker model, or is it real relationship behavioral finance stuff where you're going to talk about their life goals, do wealth planning, do more of a full spectrum and not so much concerned about the financial products? And then you got to know yourself. Are you interested in financial products? Do you want to learn about, exotics like structured products and things? Then maybe you'd be better off going towards an investment bank and working on the actual architecture of the product. Rather than working in financial advisory. So it's more like, what do you want to do and what kind of team and people will surround you to do it?
Yeah, that's the best answer. And to complement that, I would say it's a great stamp on your CV. But that's not that important.
Yeah, it's like what people used to say about audit firms, and with all due respect for audit firms, because I worked for one for 9 years, don't stay too long. is the advice I got from the first day I entered. And I stayed too long, but I think, in the end, you can get a ton of good experience there. But then if you're not continuing to grow, if you're just trying to progress in rank and pay, you're not making a good job of managing your career. You have to progress in knowledge, learning, and in here you have to love what you're doing, and that'll change over time. And I don't think you can, generally, like, I think my father, dad, hi, thanks for watching today. He worked for one company for over 40 years. People today don't do that anymore, and they tend to gig out, so it's a gig economy, and will work at many different places. So my average, so far I've worked at 3 big brands in companies and many different jobs and specialties within those companies, so I kept changing myself. And I think, when you move into Giorgio's age range, it'll be 10 plus. And my son, who's now 7, he may never have a corporate job. He may work across various industries in a design agency or something, but it's really about the gig economy and learning new skills constantly. Like I'm doing video right now. I would have never done video 5 years ago. Totally uncomfortable till I realized I can do this. So that's it. Do you remember any other questions we got offline from people about their career and working in finance?
So I did a graduate program in a bank, and I get asked from a lot of friends, how was it and how do I get in? So how was it? It was great because especially the bank that I did the graduate program for let you handpick your positions, the position you can work in, and you can pick among the entire possibilities. So for example, I decided to work in the innovation team, and that was great. How did I get in? I think I have a very specific skill, and that's software engineering, and from a decent school, and that was highly regarded and valuable for nowadays banking, because I can actually do things, but I also showed some soft skills. So unlike many software engineers, I can talk a little bit, I can understand business, and if you have a combination of soft skills and hard skills, you will find a way in banking. So
they roll Giorgio out every time we do one of these graduate trainee programs because he's been one of our happiest, most successful ones, and the reason is because he can actually communicate, and I think communication is a big difference. Go into a corporation.
Yeah, it's the attitude, and also again, if you have only soft skills, you will not go that far. But if you have only hard skill, you will not go that far either. But if you combine something really valuable, and also you can communicate how valuable the things you're doing are, that's the sweet spot.
Yeah, I mean, it's not all about Instagramming and tweeting your way through the day. It's all, you have to be able to merge all your worlds that you're seeing and create your own value proposition as you go at something. So, I have, and I'm the first to say this all the time, I have no qualifications to run an innovation function or to even work in innovation. But what I was able to do was absorb so many things throughout my career that what I was doing in finance 10 years ago wasn't really finance. I am the world's worst accountant. I can't even add. I learned accountancy as a hard skill in school, and I used that to build a career off of. So you need 1 or 2 hard skills to start with. But then your career will shift over time, at least mine did. And now, I'm looking at R&D and innovation for one of the world's biggest banks. It's like a dream, right? And my only qualification for it is attitude, passion for learning, accepting of other people's opinions. And if you take those things as part of your gift to the world, you can do that. If you're, kind of a stiffer guy who loves to follow the rules and the rule books and likes to apply your hard trade, then find a job like that. There's tons of them.
Yeah.
Accountancy, legal, compliance, regulation. Can I memorize this book of stuff and then apply it and figure out what the case law is? And I couldn't do that. I can't do it. If you're more a soft skill person, marketing, branding, right? Managing is the ultimate soft skill.
Also, it makes sense to say that the sector itself is not that important. I at the end of the day, I speak with my friends. They work in in insurance, in biotech, or consulting. At the end of the day, we do more or less similar job. It's not that dramatic of a difference. Do we agree with that?
Yeah.
So just...
Oh, by the way, one of the other things you have to think about is what kind of industry you want to work in. I sound like I'm lecturing down now. I'm not. I have no clue. To this day, I'm going to turn 45 in the summer, so I'm old. I have no clue what industry I actually want to work in. Still don't know. I've worked in high tech, I've worked in pharma, I've worked in various pieces of finance, insurance, the funds, asset management industry. I worked in the front side of investment banking.
It doesn't really matter.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Your career is your career, and what industries you work in is more dependent on what skills you want to learn.
Yeah.
You keep learning. So, long answer to a short question, but I think planning for a career in finance and thinking about that is important. So I like the questions, and that's why we took it on as an episode. So I hope that's a little different than normal fintechy innovation discussion. If you have more questions about it, ask us.
Yeah.
So let's take some questions. I like questions. What do you guys got?